Why don't let's get started. I'm Bruce Payton. I'm the vice president of the club and presiding today because the club president, Crystal Wickham, is joining us remotely, but they get interrupted partway through. So welcome everyone to the general meeting of the Sunnyvale Democratic Club. We're on Zoom only today because our in-person venue became unavailable on short notice. As people are joining, I'd like to acknowledge current and former elected officials and those serving on boards and commissions who are in attendance. And I will probably need some help identifying all of those. Mike or Crystal, could you maybe help me identify? I'm not in current electeds, but someone know who the...
Yeah, I think we're likely to not see too many because the Democratic Party state convention is this weekend in Sacramento. So
our sheriff is elected.
That's true.
That is true.
A few boards and commissioners. Mike Cerrone is on Planning Commission. I'm on Sustainability. Clara is a former city council and member and vice mayor. Let's see, Sue Cerrone on, not anymore, Arts Commission. Okay. And who else? Please identify yourself if you're on a commission.
And Agnes Heath just signing on is on Sustainability Commission.
no, on
No, on which commission?
That's okay. It's the Arts Commission,
Arts
Bruce.
Commission. I knew that.
Thank you.
Sustainable art.
Sustainability Commission would be great, but that's not what I sit on.
That's wishful thinking. Okay. Okay, and before I make any more mistakes, let me also introduce the executive board members that are in attendance. First, I've already mentioned Crystal Wickham, who's the president. I serve as vice president. Gail Rubino is our secretary. Our treasurer, Mina Judiconda, I don't see yet. Political director, Martin Pine. Communications director, Mike Cerrone. Membership director, Cheryl Bartholomew. Director at large is Tara Martin-Milius, and director at large, Peggy Shen Brewster. So our meetings are open to the public and we welcome new attendees and members. The Democratic Club of Sunnyvale is committed to providing a welcoming, respectful, friendly, safe, supportive, and harassment-free environment for members and guests. The club expects all leaders, members, and attendees to respect the personal rights and dignities of all individuals to create a productive, inclusive environment for all. Today, our program includes our invited speaker, Sheriff Bob Jonsen. We'll hear from the sheriff first and then follow with Q&A, which will be moderated by Mike Cerrone. Gail, did you want to introduce Sheriff or would you like me to?
Oh, you can do that.
Okay. Sheriff Jonsen was an endorsed candidate of the club and was elected the 29th sheriff of Santa Clara County in 2022. He spent 37 years in law enforcement and held roles in Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and Los Angeles County. He inherited a number of challenging issues in our county, and we're looking forward to hearing how those are being addressed. Sheriff, thank you for being here to speak to the club today. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Bruce. If you will give me one moment, I'm going to try to share my screen. Hopefully all this works.
yeah,
Or not.
We can see that.
Now, can you just see that?
Yep.
yes.
Well done.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. It's really an honor to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. It's actually been almost a year. It'll be a year in December, and it's been amazing how quickly time has gone by. One of the things that I'd like to just kind of start with is I don't think it's the elephant in the room, but I don't think it's a secret to anyone that this was a very challenging organization confronted with numerous issues. And that's what prompted the probably a new sheriff coming into this organization without question. So what I'd like to do today is give you an update of what we've been doing and where we plan to lead this organization. Very excited about it. Actually, the year has been tremendous. We've accomplished many, many things. And so I'm looking forward to this presentation with you today. You know, one of the things that I'd like to try to do is get this video, and it'll kind of give those that don't know me very well a little insight. And it's a really short video that the county put together just so the community can learn more about who Bob Jonsen is. And we'll see if this plays.
Bob,
Being the newly elected sheriff of Santa Clara County means the world to me. Who is Bob Jonsen? Inside the organization, somebody deeply committed to this profession, loving it every minute
You hear that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
of the day. Morning, Ken.
Hey, morning, Sheriff.
Morning, Dahlia. Morning. I have been in law enforcement for 37 years now, and I'm so humbled by the opportunity to wear tan and green again. My family actually settled here in Santa Clara in the 1850s. You may have heard my great-great-uncle was the sheriff of Santa Clara County in 1887. I'm very proud to walk the halls, especially because of my great-great-uncle, his picture still being on those walls. So extremely proud moment for me. Bob Jonsen at home is somebody deeply committed to his family. I grew up in the Bay Area, in Novato, California, and that's where I went to high school, and I played football, wrestled, and boxing. Most people, I would say, do not know or may not know, when I was younger, I did go into acting, and I got a role in Return of the Jedi. That's me right there. And he jumps, he's going to throw me off and into the tree, and that's where my career ended. And it was also the realization for me that when you're 19 and all they do is put a helmet over your face, realizing that this mug isn't designed for the big screen. So I moved on and gave up acting. And there I go, again, another crash, career over. Moved down to Los Angeles when I was 19 years old. One thing led to another. Before I knew it, I was applying to Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, where I spent 27 years before becoming the chief of Menlo Park. And from there, I transitioned to be the chief of Palo Alto and was there for the past 4.5 years before being elected sheriff of Santa Clara County. Yeah, mindfulness is something that I definitely take with me every day. I think it's really, for me, it's six simple words: be fit, be well, be more. When I say be fit, people are going to say, well, are you fit? And so if they want a challenge, we'll do it. And so push-ups is something I'm doing quite a bit within the organization, and always up for, listen, I got 2 or 3 of you here. We can just jump down, do push-ups anytime you're ready.
10 good ones, right? You get it.
In my first term, which would be 4 years, I hope to accomplish stabilizing the organization, stop the exodus from this organization, and really recruit and train the best that we can. We want to build our rehabilitation program out, building those community relations that I spoke about, and having community advisory groups put in place. I just think it's important for a leader of an organization, especially in law enforcement, during trying times as we're experiencing the last couple of years, to be there for the organization, each employee within the organization, and also being connected to the community, something I take a lot of pride in.
So hopefully you enjoyed that. I really appreciate them putting that together. It gives people a little greater insight. And now you're probably wondering why you're looking at an old beat up 1946 Ford pickup. And I actually, this is a pickup I bought during the pandemic, and a lot of people, especially my family members, really asked what the heck I was thinking. I mean, this thing was going to take a tremendous amount of work. It had definitely seen better days. The engine was frozen. It was not moving forward in any day soon. It was going to take a lot of work. And, you know, sure, could I have gone out, bought something that was all redone? But there's 2 reasons I chose this truck. One is I saw the potential in it. And 2 is I do like a challenge. And really, when I decided to run for this position in 2022, the same comments were made, is why would I want to take on an organization that clearly is not moving forward, has been beaten down over the last several years, and seems to be deteriorating every day. Well, again, I saw the potential and I like the challenge. And I'm so happy that I did this, decided to get into this race to be the sheriff of Santa Clara County, because now that I'm in this organization, I'm seeing tremendous innovation. I'm seeing a committed workforce, men and women that are extremely dedicated to this community, to this county, to public service. So, you know, one of the things I wanted to do today is really show you what we did from the very beginning, what we've done over the last 11 months, and what we plan to do moving forward. And one of the things we did, I thought was really, really important coming into the organization, was to outline where we were going. And we did this in a 100-day report, and we publicized it. It's on our website. And this was put out like literally within the first 100 days of me taking office. And inside that, it talked about what we were going to do to stabilize the organization, what we were going to do and have been doing around transparency, accountability, and oversight. What we're going to do about building stronger relationships throughout the county. And really, I put an operational priority on rehabilitation programs. And the work in that area has been phenomenal in the past year. So I'm super excited about the direction we're headed there. And really developing a workforce so we could be, a model of best practices in every aspect, whether it's in our jails or in how we serve in our community. So again, this report is online. One of the things we also did is looking, and it's still in progress, but our online presence was not to a state that I wanted it to be. So we've been working on overhauling our website. And one of the things that's now available on our website is a transparency portal. So you can go onto the website, scroll down about us, go down to transparency portal. And within that portal, there is going to be a tremendous amount of information that I believe the community deserves to see. And it is something that's online now. We'll continue to update it as information comes in. For many of you, you may remember, you know, transparency in law enforcement has really been evolving over the last few years. Several laws came into place, 1421 to be specific, Senate Bill 16 took place a couple of years ago, which really required agencies to start becoming more accountable and more transparent, especially in the significant incidents. So as you can see, officer-involved shooting, these are the types of incidents that are listed that require us, when somebody wants the information under PRA, to post that. Well, I actually don't believe people should have to put in for a PRA, public records request, every time something happens of this magnitude. So we're putting all of these on our transparency portal now, and then we're also putting much more. One of the things that you'll be able to access is not only our annual crime statistics, and we actually lay them out in great detail, but you'll also be able to see calls for service, how we're doing as far as responding to those calls, what types of investigations are going on, custody statistics, hiring demographics. So we've really enhanced our web presence, our internet presence. And again, it's just a place that people can go to obtain information. So now it's become far easier for us when somebody calls in and wants something, we can usually direct them straight to this website, the transparency portal, so they can access the information. You know, and that, as I mentioned, we're on a very high level, you'll start off and see in the report how we're doing within the state when it comes to our overall crime rate compared to the state crime rate, our property crime rate, and our violent crime rate. And as you can see, Santa Clara County's doing really well in all three of those areas. We'll talk a little bit more about property crimes in a moment, because that is one of the most prevalent crimes that we're seeing in Santa Clara County. And it's no secret, it's actually throughout the state. You see the grab and runs, the smash and grabs, vehicle burglaries, residential burglaries. So we outline all these in our website as well. And if you scroll down the website through the crime statistics, like I said, it gets a lot of detail, but on a high level, one of the things that you'll see, which every agency usually reports out on, is really what it's considered our UCR reporting. And those are your top 8 crimes, as you see: the homicide, the rape, robbery, aggravated assault, simple assaults, commercial burglaries, residential burglaries, petty theft, auto theft, and even arson. So here you can see again how we're trending. We're doing fairly well this year compared to last year. No major shifts in things, except again, when I see residential burglaries trending up, that's concerning, because a lot of people, property related crimes are really something we would hope that we can bring down. And especially the invasion of privacy when they break into your home is tremendous. So we're going to be focusing on that quite a bit this upcoming year. In addition to the property petty thefts, the grab and run, smash and grabs, all of those, we're going to be spending a tremendous amount of effort. One of the reasons we're going to be able to do that is the state put out for a grant to address organized retail theft. And we actually applied for that grant. We received the highest allocation in the county of $11 million. So this is a 3-year grant that we're going to be able to use to really combat organized retail theft throughout the county. So we're putting the team together now. The funds have been received, and that'll be from 2024, 25, and 26. So we'll see how that plays out. But several agencies, for those that don't live, in the unincorporated area, several agencies, municipalities in the county received it. I think Palo Alto may have been one of them, maybe Morgan Hill or Milpitas, but a couple agencies received it. So if you live in those cities, you're going to probably see a little more direction towards retail theft by those municipalities. And let me just back up, because again, sometimes I make assumptions. A lot of people don't realize the Santa Clara Sheriff's Office actually oversees much more than just the jails. And so if you're not aware, we actually provide all the law enforcement services for all the unincorporated area throughout the county, in addition to the 3 contract cities of Cupertino, Saratoga, and Los Altos Hills. And then, yes, obviously we have operational control over our jails. We provide security for the VTA as well. And in addition to that, VMC, the county hospitals, and the courts. So quite a bit going on throughout the county, but we're doing our best to meet all the obligations that we have. The other thing that I wanted to address, this is also available on our website now, is again, no secret, I would think, to any of you or people within our county. Concealed weapons permits were a huge issue and a huge controversy, which really led to the indictment of the former sheriff and how those were being handled. And one of the things that I did immediately when I came in, obviously, was look at how we were doing that process, how we could do it better, and how it could be more equitable. And what we did was enter into a contract with a third-party vendor, Permitium. And so now what happens, the sheriff, myself, all I do is sign the permits after they've gone through this fairly extensive process. I would say we probably have, and when I say we, the sheriff's office has probably the most comprehensive process when it comes to CCWs, and I'll speak a little bit more about that, because what's happening is now, today, if you live in San Jose, or you live in Morgan Hill, or you live in Palo Alto, wherever you may live, you can actually apply for CCWs directly through that municipality, through their chief of that city. So San Jose is doing their own concealed firearm permits now, and so are numerous other agencies. Yet everybody can apply through the county, and that's why in the past, a vast majority of CCWs were being issued only by the sheriff. Well, now that has been distributed. Some of that reason is because of the change in the Supreme Court decision, making it, I don't want to say easier, but probably more equitable in how these things should be issued. Meaning it's not up for any one individual to determine if somebody meets the criteria. They can say yes or no, just indiscriminately. So what we've put into place is, for anyone that wants to apply for a concealed firearm permit, they have to go through our website, which links them straight into Permitium. All the information gets vetted through our third-party vendor. If they get the application, it's complete, it's thorough, then they move into an internal interview. They go through the interview process, then they have to go, if they make it through that, we require a psychological exam. This is where we've enhanced, in my opinion, the process, because the psychological exam, some of the municipalities, well, first of all, it's not required. We're allowed to do it under certain circumstances, but it's not required. So some municipalities don't require it at all. I really feel it's extremely important, especially with all the things that we're seeing in our society, that if somebody wants access to carrying a gun, they should be psychologically sound. So we have a psychological exam built in. If they move past that, then we've also enhanced the training requirements. By law, the training requirements were only 8 hours. I wanted to double that to 16 hours, which we have. So again, people can go about this a different way, but if they're going to come through the county, I'm going to be pretty sure that they're capable, both physically, psychologically, and trained to carry a firearm. And at the end of the day, you could see through all those processes in green at the bottom, if they make it all the way through that, then they are issued a permit. And then we have seen a tremendous increase in the amount of permits that have come in since the Supreme Court decision. I think right now in the queue, there's over 1,200 applicants, and that's just for Santa Clara County. Again, the municipalities have their own process, so I couldn't speak to how many they're receiving. But I think generally all the agencies, and I would say almost all the agencies throughout the state, since that decision has come out, has seen a dramatic increase in the amount of applications. So hopefully our community stays safe, people will be responsible, and if they're not, the permits can be revoked. So I can answer questions about that later if there are some. You know, one of the things I really wanted to talk about was what we're doing in our jails. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, this is, for me, an operational protocol, a priority for the organization. And I want to talk about why, and where sometimes my frustration comes in is that, you know, there's millions and millions of dollars that gets issued to our state through the CDCR, through the prison system for rehabilitation programs. And that's great, but we know that 100% of the individuals that are housed in the county jails are going to get released back into our communities. So therefore, it's my opinion that they should have access, a pathway to vocational programs and or educational programs from the moment they come in. And that's really what we're building upon. Our college collaborative is becoming a state model. And why I say that, we just received the Western Correctional Health Association Award for innovation when it comes to program. Rising Scholars has spoken about this program and is advocating other county jails to look at our model for the college collaborative. And if you didn't hear, and as you can see in the photo attached to this with a smile, I thought they were going to give me an Emmy for my days in Star Wars, but in fact, that wasn't the case. Telemundo did coverage of what we're doing in our jails with the college collaborative, and that episode won an Emmy. So they came back and shared their Emmy with us, which was a really proud moment for the staff at Elmwood, because they put a tremendous amount of work into this college collaborative. And why is it a game changer? Well, education in incarceration is there or it's not. And it's to be, you know, some would think it's always there for every county jail, but it's not, because they just may not have the resources, access. And this is something we've really been working hard to implement. And what makes it a game changer for us in our county, it's not just one school district or one community college. We have 6 community colleges that have signed on into this collaboration, this MOU. And why that's so important, because when somebody comes into jail, they now have access to a volume of educational classes that can lead to their degrees, or, you know, even a higher degree. And they have access to it from the moment they're housed, and we connect them with one of our rehabilitation officers who really creates the pathway for them. And the beauty of it is when they are released, they can continue the education with any one of those 6 community colleges. And why that's important is because we have found when somebody comes in, maybe if all I had was Foothill Community College classes, and then they get released, but they live down in South County, that could be problematic for them to go to Foothill to continue their education. to where now they can actually go to Gavilan or another community college that may be geographically closer to where they live. We have found that people are taking advantage of that because that ease of access is making it more accessible for them, both inside the facilities and when they're released. And that's an area that I'm really proud of that we have to offer. I'm very proud of the men and women that have made this possible and the colleges that have decided. We're working to expand that even more. I'd like to have all the community colleges in the county engaged in this. So I think there's 2 or 3 more we're looking to have sign on. And even from there, I'd love to have a state university become part of the collaborative as well. So those that have already obtained their AA degree can go on and work on their bachelor's or a graduate degree. So that's what we're doing in there. We're really proud of it. And the area that we're going to be working on and focusing on in the upcoming year is really starting to rebuild and expand some of the vocational programs. We had several vocational programs that were really leading to certifications, whether it's welding, veterinary services, were a couple of them. We now have a culinary program that's at the facilities. But I want to continue to expand that. I'd love to get into the green workforce, have a certification program for that. So again, when somebody goes through that program, gets certified, they have access to employment upon release. So a lot of really good things are occurring right now. I'm extremely proud, like I said, of the organization and the direction we're going. And we plan to continue that. And then kind of wrapping it up here in a minute is one of the things that my screen just froze, I think. There we go. One of the things that, I noticed coming into the organization was lack of diversity in a couple of different ways. And so one of the things we started doing immediately was our workforce, how we can become more diverse. We entered into the 30 by 30 initiative, which we kicked off earlier this year, just had a big symposium in October. What the 30 by 30 initiative is really our commitment. It's a national law enforcement initiative, and we chose to enter into it. And what we've done is pledge that our commitment is to hire 30% of our workforce will be made up of women by the year 2030. And I think this is really important because the profession has been struggling to recruit women into the profession. And it is very clear throughout our organization how far we're lacking. So even though when I say that, statistically, we're actually very much in line with the other agencies, especially in California. But I feel I really have a high aspiration and hope that we can build that. Whether we get to the 30% by 2030, I can't say we will, but that is what we're aspiring to do. And we're committed to doing that. So we'll see how that, and I'll provide updates. The last thing I really want to say is that we're going to be providing annual reports about the progress we're making in all the different areas of our the sheriff's office. Our first one will come out in 2024. But I think, again, that just goes to show the transparency piece, because a lot of people are wondering what's going on, has improvement been made, and especially around oversight and accountability. And I have a whole list of things I can show you at the end here about what we've done around the accountability piece. If you've been following the sheriff's office, you've probably heard or seen that we have dramatically increased the information sharing agreement with the OIR, Oakland, our Office of Independent Review Auditor, Mike Janacco. And that was something I had pledged I would do, and we were successful in doing that this year. And we did it in a way that, for those that may not know, OIR Oakland was put in place by the Board of Supervisors 4 years ago. There was a very contentious relationship between OIR and the prior sheriff. So they really weren't getting access to the information they needed to review our use of force cases, investigations. Well, I made that clear that we were going to open those doors. We have opened those doors. And what we did in our information sharing agreement with them this year was dramatically expand their access to records. So much so we've now built them in to the review process of all our investigations. And why that's valuable is that they don't have to wait till the investigation is complete for them to start looking at it. They have access to our files. They have their own sign-ins now to our databases. And in the end of any investigation, before it's been finalized, they actually sit on the review board. And why that's important, because if there's an aspect of the investigation they felt hasn't been adequately addressed, then we push it back to the division to address whatever the concerns are, and they bring it forward. And so far this year, they've already sat in 5 of those reviews. And so they spoke about it a couple of weeks ago with an update to the board. So that relationship has dramatically improved. It's going very well. And I plan to continue to allow them to have unfettered access so they can do their job and report back to the board and the community about progress being made. So hopefully I've kind of given you a snapshot, and I know we're going to have a question answer period, but you know, this is the truck I showed you at the beginning. It took 3 years. It is dramatically different than it looked when I pulled it off the flatbed in 2020. It took a lot of work. The engine is running, it's moving forward. And this is really how I see this organization is, yes, they had flatlined for a while. They were beat up for a while. They had a lot of things to address, and slowly we're doing that. We are making the progress, we're moving forward. And in my opinion, we're implementing nothing other than the best practices that the community would expect. So again, for now, I'm gonna unshare and see if there's any questions, comments, and where we wanna go from here. So let me pause. There you go.
Okay, great. Yeah, again, Sheriff, I'm Mike Cerrone. I'm the Communications Director, and I'll be calling on people who have questions. And I see we have some questions queued up already, although I'll start with one myself.
Yeah.
A lot of jurisdictions across the country, when a new sheriff, a new police chief, maybe a district attorney comes in, particularly if they have different policies, they get a lot of pushback from the police unions or just the safety officers in general. Sometimes, you know, blue flu or various things, or criticism being leaked to the press, things like that. Have you, especially coming in after, you know, people were used to doing things for a long time, have you seen a lot of that? Has that been an issue?
No, actually, I would have to say this has probably been, and as you heard in the opening, this is my 4th organization. Obviously, I was an outsider to Menlo Park. I was the outsider to Palo Alto, and clearly the outsider to this organization. But I have been, the transition has been probably the smoothest out of all of them. And I honestly say, and I don't say this out of disrespect for anybody in particular, the organization just needed change. They wanted change, and they have been very embracing. We would have never gotten the information sharing agreement to the level we did if the unions hadn't signed off, which they had to. They had to be part of that equation. So they came into this with eyes wide open, and we went through and had extensive amount of meetings with them, talking about the reason. I've always been a believer that oversight makes you a better organization. It's going to challenge us. They were going to have to up our game when it comes to reports, documentation, investigations. But even now that, because I would say this is the first year that Mike Giannacco's office has truly had access to these investigations. And so far, he's, you know, been very complimentary. I think he was concerned about the level of investigations based on things, you know, incidents of the past. But we've set that expectation very high for our personnel. We're doing a lot of training with our sergeants, our lieutenants, with that expectation of excellence in what we do and the pride that we have or should have and will have, knowing that people are going to be looking at everything we do. So they welcomed it, they signed off on it, and right now everything has been going really well. Haven't had any incidents of concern. We're changing our operating models in several areas. And again, they could have pushed back, but they haven't. They're in that state of let's give it a shot. And right now they've been nothing but very, very supportive, which I greatly appreciate.
Wow, that's great. So I see Agnes Fife has a question.
Hi, I have a comment and two questions. I really like your truck. Well done.
Thank you.
And my two questions are focused on the concealed carry weapons permit.
Yeah.
For the cities that are authorized to issue a permit, do they follow the same requirements that the county follows that you outlined? And
No.
and the other question is, are there limited areas that an individual can go to, or do they have to keep a certain distance if they have a concealed weapon? So,
Yeah.
so those are my two questions.
Yeah, so the first question, when I say no, for the most part, everybody has certain guidelines they have to follow, but how they do their processes may be different. Like I said, we hired a third-party vendor to do the application process. We've added two components that I don't believe the other municipalities have. Maybe they've adjusted, but the psychological examination, which is, again, it's one of those, you can do it, but you don't have to do it. I just felt it was tremendously important. If somebody wanted to carry a gun, I need to know they're psychologically sound. So we've implemented that. And the other aspect was the training. So some of the other municipalities, a lot of them will just go with the standard 8-hour training requirement. I just, again, felt I want to have some comfort knowing somebody, especially if it's somebody that's not 100% comfortable with the firearms, they at least get trained, qualified, they're certified. So it provides, again, another layer of comfort for the community, in my opinion. To your second question, yes, there are restrictions. We have it outlined in our policy. Most of the organizations have very, very similar policies to where you can carry it. You can't carry it if you're out drinking. You can't carry it in a bar, can't be near schools, all these different things. So there's quite a few restrictions. And a chief or a sheriff can actually add additional restrictions. And as you know, SB 2 added some restrictions as well. And that's a law that passed last year that'll go into place as far as the churches, schools, and other community vending places.
So may I ask one more question about the concealed carry permits?
Yeah.
Is there any movement to have consistency with cities throughout the county so they are as stringent as what you described with the testing and the training?
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, yes, because we talk about it quite a bit, the County Chiefs Association, and we're all trying to be as aligned as we can. You know, again, this is the first year, 2023 was the first year since the Supreme Court decision. So a lot of agencies are just putting together their policies, their protocols to address it, how they're going to take and receive applications. You know, we were doing it for a while. We've just modified it, and it definitely needed some revisions. So I think we'll get there, but it is a work in progress right now.
Thank you.
Hey, Stephen.
Hello, Sheriff. I'm Steve Meyer. I live in Sunnyvale, and I'm a big cyclist. I spend a lot of time on my bicycle, and I'm quite concerned about the driver behaviors around our schools. In particular, in Sunnyvale Juris District is Homestead High School. And under the prior administration, I witnessed some pretty harrowing behavior from the drivers. I was actually on site. I called the sheriff, and the sheriff came on site, saw the behavior, and refused to enforce it. So I'm wondering if you're going to enforce all traffic laws and do extra traffic patrols in front of schools, namely Homestead High, but also Kennedy, Bob, and Monte Vista, McLaren. We have a lot of drivers that stop in the traffic lane and let their passengers out. We have drivers parking in bike lanes. We have a tremendous amount of problems around the schools, and I wonder what you might be doing to help us on that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we need to get back to within all the municipalities and the sheriff's office, San Jose Police Department, you know, what they used to do quite a bit was to unify at least once a month all the different traffic units throughout the county, and they'd go address special projects, special programs, special areas throughout the county. And so you'd have an influx of motor units, traffic units coming in and really addressing something very strategically within different part of the jurisdiction. We've gotten away from that, and it really gotten away from it since the pandemic. So that's something I'm very interested in bringing back. You know, the only motors that we have are normally dedicated to our contract cities of Cupertino, West Valley, and Los Altos Hills. But if we bring back that roving unit to where we go throughout the county, that can benefit agencies throughout the county, in addition to what your agency, maybe Sunnyvale Public Safety, has by enhancing what they're actually deploying. So that's our hope, but I would say, Stephen, it's also a work in progress. We have a lot of new chiefs in the county as well. So I think everybody has aspirations of making their community safer. So that's something I'll continue to bring forward to them.
Great, thank you. And just one comment is I love your mindfulness practice. That
Yeah.
would be a great thing to bring into the jail facilities. There's a lot of effective research about mindfulness practices really helping the community in there.
Yeah, just so you know, we've already started that. I actually have been facilitating all of our supervisors, the sergeants in the organization, have been going through it now. And what that is, for those that don't know, it's a program that I helped co-develop with Stanford University, the Compassion Institute, based on their compassion cultivation training. So it's called Courageous Hearts, a Human Behind a Badge. It's post-certified, which is great because that allows agencies to send their people. So we're sending all the sergeants through it. That was our objective for this year. And hopefully we'll be rolling that out both not only for the workforce, but to your point, inside the correctional facilities. And we're already talking with some CCT, compassion cultivation trainers, certified trainers, to try a pilot in the women's facility in the upcoming year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Jim and Janet Harper.
Yes, hi, I'm Janet, and I've been wondering about, first of all, I wanted to make a comment. I think your educational emphasis is just fantastic. So I'm glad that you're implementing things in that line. The other thing is, it seems to me, I'm wondering what kind of screening occurs when someone wants to be a law enforcement officer, because it seems to me that there are some people that really should not be in law enforcement because of their psychological makeup, so to speak. That's
Right.
question number one.
Yeah, no, it's a very comprehensive, actually, and that's why we're having such a hard time filling positions, because the process can take 3 months to a year due to all the processes of screening. Psychological exam is definitely one of those components, a very extensive background investigation. So no, and this is pretty standard throughout the profession, the requirements to hire. As you know, or may know, and again, I apologize for just assuming, you know, some of the laws that have changed over the last couple of years, and especially with the Department of Justice having an integrity unit now, whenever we have an officer that we think has done something significant and we've disciplined them or terminated them, we now have to send those cases up to Sacramento to be evaluated for decertification. So that officer can't go to another agency. And that's what was happening a lot of times. Somebody get in trouble, they'd go to another agency. That's becoming far more problematic, which is tremendously beneficial for our communities of not having these officers have the ability to just go somewhere else when they've committed some kind of act that led to their termination from another agency.
And question number two, I think one of the most difficult things for people in law enforcement would be dealing with the mentally ill. So I'm wondering what kind of training or what kind of support do you have from you know, other resources to help with that? Because, you know, someone can behave in such a way that you're jumping to one assumption when in truth part of it is their mental illness.
Right. So we're actually working on that and becoming, really, in my opinion, a best practice when it comes to how we're dealing with it in our jails and how we're dealing with it in our community. Let me start with the community. I think right now we may, and I say may, because maybe one of the other municipalities has started doing it again too. When I was at Palo Alto, we were the first municipality to implement a PERT team, meaning, and that was a psychiatric emergency response team where you had a mental health clinician in the car with a police officer to respond to incidents of somebody involved in a mental health crisis. Palo Alto, that's no longer in place, but we have 2 of those positions in our patrol, our enforcement services. So we have 2 mental health clinicians that are hired out of the behavioral health department that work every day with a deputy sheriff. And they have responded to hundreds of calls now over the last couple of years. And very few arrests have had to be made because they have connections with the services that the individual really needs rather than being taken to jail. So that is a program I've heavily advocated to expand, and I have hopes of doing that. And that, again, is a partnership with the Department of Behavioral Health because they have to hire the clinicians to put in the car. So that's working really well for us in patrol. I'm hoping to expand it. In our jails, we're doing the same type of thing now. We have what we call multi-support deputies. And what these deputies do, their primary function is to continually check in with individuals who are incarcerated and having mental health issues. And they're connected with the clinicians, the psychologists, the psychiatrists within the jails, and they're constantly making sure they get their access to care. We have, I think, 8 of those deputies in place right now. By design, we want to have 24. So again, another area for growth that we're going to continue to advocate for, because a lot of our jail population right now, I think it's hovering around 40%, have been diagnosed with a mental health issue. So it's something we have to respond to and be prepared to handle. Hopefully that answered your question, Janet.
I think it's Janet, and yes, mostly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue?
Hi. Yeah, thank you for your presentations. Very informative. I had really kind of a, well, it's a practical, but also kind of a philosophical question. And that is one of the things that I'm working on with Leadership Sunnyvale is bringing AI education to future leaders. And I'm wondering, what is your state of the state about AI in your department, and what are your feelings about it for the future?
Yeah, no, I'm actually fascinated by it. I mean, I'm not, that the tech world is not my lane, so to speak, but I'm fascinated at what it's capable of doing. I think it's, especially for our organization, anything that can make us more efficient in using technology would be an asset for us. We're just now, and I say we, the sheriff's office is just now starting to upgrade some of this pieces of technology that are critically important for access to information. Our jail management system should be fully implemented by 2025, which is critically important to know and understand who's getting what type of care, access, movement within our jails. And AI is something that we just got briefed on at the county level, because I know the county's interested in it as well. So all I can say is right now I'm curious, but I'm gonna be very supportive if there's something that can make us more efficient and more effective.
Can I just follow up and ask you, does that include facial recognition?
No. So that's something I will tell you when it comes to facial recognition, that's something the county's always been pretty strict on as far as not implementing things from utilizing facial recognition. So our license plate readers, our cameras, all of that. That question comes up quite a bit, and we don't have anything in the works right now, at least right now, when it comes to facial recognition.
Thank you.
And Bruce, you have a question? Then we have some questions in the chat as well.
Your account of all the changes you're making are really encouraging. As we look at the problems with police forces around the country, there's some nasty surprises that have come up that indicate that changes in practices are one thing, but changing cultures are quite a different thing. Now, as you sound like you're telling a very encouraging story, but as all of us were watching the sheriff's office over the last multiple years, you got an impression that the problem wasn't just at the top, although it clearly started at the top. I'm just wondering, what are you encountering and what are you doing about the culture change kind of issues?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And again, without disrespecting anybody in particular, I think they were lacking leadership. And when you lack leadership and direction and really setting expectations for an organization, I think people start to diverge wherever they feel the leadership is. And sometimes that's not where it should best be. So I think one of the things we've done very clearly and somewhat effectively is really establish that this is a new organization. There is new leadership. We've set the expectations. One of the things I did within probably the first 2 months, 3 months, is I went to every single unit and met with the personnel, and I told them what my expectations. And I think that was really, really important because this is a large organization. And if I had just sent it out from the top and asked everybody to disseminate it, who knows what they would have heard at the line level. So I thought it was critically important. And I think that really set us in the right direction early on, because I've been here, I'm coming up on a year right now. And yes, we still have incidents. We still have times when there's officers, deputies using force. But what I've been extremely impressed with is looking at these cases, seeing, yes, okay, that was justified. And more importantly, when it was over, they stopped, they got the person the care they needed, they were respectful, and they did the job the way I would expect them to do. And so we're going to continue sending that message out. And all I can say, fingers crossed, we keep going in the right direction, which I think we really are right now.
Thank you for that. Just following on a little bit further, in many of the police forces around the country, they're finding that there's been a profound racial element to the negative forces. And I would expect maybe less of that in California, but who knows? But I'm just wondering, what do you do to monitor and track, how well you're doing on racial equity kind of dimensions?
Yeah. Well, again, and I think that's first of all, it's a very valuable question. But this is where, and I speak about it quite a bit, I think this is an advantage to having an independent oversight. I do think it's critically important. And I can say this with some kind of confidence because I've had it in 3 of the 4 organizations I worked for. I had it in Los Angeles, and I had it in Palo Alto with the Office of Independent Review, and now I have it with the Sheriff's Office. And I've been very vocal about the importance of this for agencies throughout the country, because what it does for you, it allows that independent person, that group or whatever it may be, to actually go into your organization and not just physically walking inside the data, inside the access to the body cam, inside all these databases and see what's happening in there. And that's really important because sometimes we as leaders and members of the organizations, we're so committed to doing other things, we don't have the opportunity to constantly go in there. And that's the role of the independent auditor. And that's why we gave them that direct access into the systems, because I think that's important.
Thank you.
And we have a couple questions in the chat, but Peggy, you had a couple questions. Maybe if you just directly ask them.
Oh yeah, Gail has her hand raised. So Gail, would you like to go first, and then I'll ask mine?
No, you go first. You're talking. Go.
Okay. I was curious about the Elmwood Correctional Institute. I think that the educational and vocational programs that you have there, that's very encouraging and much needed. When did that begin? I was wondering if you have any information about outcomes or recidivism or anything like that.
Yeah, we're in the first year of the college collaborative. So we actually, this is something I was really happy that the board gave us. They gave us a budget item for a rehabilitation director position. We've hired that individual. They start in January, and their role will be to do just what you're asking. Start looking at our programs. How effective are they? Which ones may need to be modified or enhanced? And when it comes to recidivism, access, continuation, all of that. So we'll plan on starting to report out on that probably next year.
Great. Thank you for taking the initiative on that. That's so important.
Yeah. Welcome.
Go ahead, Gail.
Hi, thank you, Sheriff. I've got a bunch of stuff here, and I hope I have time to do it. First of all, I used to go to the courts a lot, and the sheriffs there are just fantastic when you have to put all your stuff through the screening stuff. I was wondering, do you revolve people in the department? So sometimes they do this and then they move over to that, or do they stay?
Yeah, I'm smiling because we just went through this ordeal 3 days ago. So we do it every year. It doesn't mean everybody moves every year, but every year they have what they call an annual bump. And what it means is people have the opportunity to put in for a new assignment and the rotation begins. So some people move every year. There's a 3-year mandatory though. So when somebody's in the jails for 3 years, they go back out to patrol or they go to a different assignment, investigations and so on. So we just, to your point with the courts, there's a lot of change that'll come into place because there's a lot of rotation, and that all takes place in the beginning of January.
Okay, I'll do one more, and that is, since you deal with county stuff, right? That's not,
Yes.
I can't remember the word, but that's okay. Okay, so my question is, are there Santa Clara County initiatives? So the sheriff's department works with all of the police departments on things like, and I've got 3, retail theft, home robbery, and auto robbery, because we're getting gangs, I think, of people that come down streets. Like, I don't know how many kids jump out of cars and they wipe out 20 cars at one time. And this is in Sunnyvale. I don't know what, but are you guys working together with police departments to figure out, do we need CCTV? Do we need more patrols? Because this is a lot. The problem with auto robbery is, you come outside in the morning and you can't get to work and it's a pain in the butt. And home robbery is really bad because we have so many people that work during the day and they scout out the neighborhoods and just go nuts. I know that's happening a lot in Los Altos. And the retail theft is nuts, where we have all stuff now behind bars, like the cosmetics are in prison. So thank you.
Yes. So to answer, if I get the sequence right, to answer your
I think you might have frozen. My question frozen.
all collaborate. Vehicle theft is one of them. It's called RADF. That's a task force. We have another one that focuses primarily on drugs, a task force, and then we have the gun-related task force. With those being said, we are now building out this retail theft, organized retail theft. So we received, as you saw on the slide, 11 million. I believe San Jose Police Department received 8 million. I want to say Palo Alto 4 or 5 million. So multi-millions came into this county throughout these different agencies. And yes, we will be collaborating. The district attorney also got some money. So we'll be collaborating not only with the other municipalities, but with the district attorney, so we can streamline the cases that go to the district attorney for vertical prosecution, enhanced prosecution, because you're absolutely right. And from every community I've been in so far in the past year, that is probably their greatest frustration, is the retail theft, the residential burglaries, and the vehicle burglaries.
Thank you.
So we'll have that initiative. All the agencies that received funding, that's a 3-year funding grant. So we're really going to be focused on retail theft for the next 3 years without question.
Good. Max, go ahead.
Just a note from a software engineer. The thing that is called AI, that is usually just a large language model, is mostly just glorified autocomplete. So be very, very skeptical if anyone tries to sell you anything calling itself AI.
Thank you.
And let's see, before we hear from Sue again, Crystal, you had a couple questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff. That was really a great presentation, and I really enjoyed hearing all of the improvements and enhancements that you're making. I was wondering if there is a need for more hiring or funding to support the increased oversight and transparency that you've implemented.
Yeah, well, that would be really a question. I think, well, let me put it this way. What we've done in the organization, so I'll start internally, then go externally. one of the things that we did get funding for in this last year is I wanted to create an Office of Compliance. And so we now have an Office of Compliance. They funded us with a few positions, I think 4 or 5 for that particular office within our office. And they'll be really the ones working extremely closely with the Office of Independent Review, with the Department of Justice, the consent decrees, all of it. So we're starting to see a little more streamlined approach. Because when I came in, what I witnessed was things were being handled all over the organization. It was very scattered. So we brought everything that has to do with oversight, audit, compliance under this one division now. So I'm super excited about that. We've already selected the captain to oversee that division. They'll be really putting their team together before the end of the year moving forward. So that's what we're doing internally to work primarily, like I said, with the Department of Justice, our monitors, whether it's from the consent decrees, use of force, mental health, custody health, and also working really with the getting things together internally so we could become more streamlined on our own investigations, which I felt really needed to be addressed and how things were being done in that area. So super excited. In the area of OIR externally, I do believe Mike Giannacco has already added a couple of attorneys. That is a budget request that would be funded through the board, not necessarily the sheriff's office. But he's brought on additional attorneys because of the expansion of the agreement that I mentioned earlier.
Great, thank you.
Sue?
Hi. Yeah, thanks for letting me ask another question. I had just read an article from the New York Times about retail theft. And surprisingly to me, the article concluded strongly that it was really the businesses that were allowing retail theft as much as anything else. And they gave a lot of facts and figures why this is happening. Kind of a bottom line is it's not worth it to them to add the extra staffing. They just rather take the loss. Right. I'm wondering, with money and people, which sounds like you're going to have devoted or already have devoted to retail theft, is there some way you could say, like qualify the business for your help? Like, are you meeting these criteria? Are you doing these things? Like, do you have enough employees just to see what's going on in the store, for example? Or I think you get my drift. But.
Yeah, no, so yeah, I read that article as well. And, they really do. We've known that for a while. Some organizations have just kind of tolerated it, right? Or even allowed, I don't want to say allowed it. It's not like they open their door and tell people to come in and take whatever they want. But because of staffing, that, to your point, they have found that their job is to sell merchandise, not necessarily protect the merchandise. So that's where we come in. We will be doing that. Part of this task force, the retail theft task force, part of that component is reaching out and meeting with the various organizations, seeing what they're doing, how they want to respond to these types of things. And we'll see where that takes us. So all of that will begin at the beginning of the year.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Carol? You're muted. You're muted, Carol. You're still muted.
Okay, did it
There we
work
go.
now?
There we go,
Thank you.
yeah.
I'm technologically challenged, but as a retired instructor, I'm thrilled to hear about your program for bringing education into the jails. That just thrills me. What I'd love to know is, for those students who may have some developmental disabilities, are there any people being brought in to help them as well? They may not be ready yet for college and need extra.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. We do have some additional contracts, not just with the junior colleges. We have a contract with Milpitas School District. They come in, offer a lot of adult educational programs, and really a lot of programs that are designed to get people, because you have to remember, not everyone even has a high school degree that comes into jail. So we have to get them ready for that. And we want to make sure That's why we connect them with a rehabilitation officer right from the beginning, as soon as they're assigned housing. So we can find out where they're at, what we need to do to get them on that pathway if they so choose. And then they work with them all the way through. And again, that's a beauty, because now individuals have access to case management, so to speak, career management, educational management, from the moment they come in all the way through. Because when they get released, now the colleges have committed to keeping with that individual, giving them the guidance, the counseling, which is very, very helpful. So again, super excited about what we're doing and where we're going.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Valerie?
Thank you very much. Sheriff, your presentation is really outstanding. So I love the truck like everybody else. I actually used to work upstairs on the 4th floor with OES. So I'm extremely grateful for everything that you guys do to keep us safe.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. The comparative slide that you shared with us, the comparative crime rates that you shared with us, was really interesting. And you mentioned that you were going to focus on reducing crime rates. My question to you is, can you address the issues that we see us, Joe Schmo, little residents, I live also in Sunnyvale, that actually criminals performing these crimes are not necessarily prosecuted? Can you address the strategies that you will implement to reduce these crime rates on the streets beyond just the education and the jail? And thank you.
Yeah, so let me use the example of retail theft, because I can't remember if it was Sue, or I think it was Sue that we were talking about it a moment ago. You know, one of the things that's been happening, especially with retail theft, and people say, well, why can't we stop this? You know, just these groups coming in, grabbing individuals, just filling up carts, whatever it may be. And yes, the prosecution is part of that. But what we're going to strategically be doing, and this is really what the grant was designed, it's really giving the resources to commit to the investigation, because really what's happening, it's organized. It's organized retail theft. This is not just individuals coming in, getting something like a pencil or a gum or what it, you know, they have a list, they're going in, they're doing it. But to get the case prosecuted takes a lot of work, because you have to prove it was a coordinated, organized retail theft. And that's where we're really going to focus on, because I think when we can start getting some of those prosecutions through, it's going to carry more severe consequences. And then I think some of the crews that are just doing it to get by will realize it's not worth it. And let me give you just a really quick example of what I mean. You know, if any one of us were to walk in a US bank, and I'm not advocating that we do this, any bank, it could be a Wells Fargo, and you go to the teller and you take $5, you rob them of $5. As soon as you exit that bank, you're going to probably, if you get arrested and prosecuted, you're going to prison, because it's a federal offense. Yet we can go into a store, steal thousands of dollars individually, not thousands to keep it. And this is why you have so many. They're really trying to keep it under the 950.
950.
Right. But when you have 10 people all going in, keeping it very they're organized, they're doing it together. But what they also know is if only one of them gets caught, they're going to get charged with petty theft, because we weren't able to prove. So that's where we really have to shift our strategy, and we need some tools to do that. That's where we're going to rely on some technology, is really piecing together who this individual is aligned with, what are they doing, how do we start creating this case that this is part of an organized ring. And again, that's why it's going to take a lot of work with a lot of the different agencies, because to your point or somebody's point, they are coming very often from outside the county. So we have to work with our regional partners and start really collaborating on the investigations. And I think that's the only way we're going to combat it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me ask a question and piggyback on Mara's question. You know, nowadays we all acknowledge that an example of sexual harassment or violence or any kind of trauma, even at a young age, can have impacts for decades for someone to recover from that. And yet law enforcement people are, many times maybe in situations where they're not necessarily threatened, but they don't, they don't know if they're going to be threatened. Someone's reaching for something, you don't know if it's going to be a gun or whatever. It just seems like there's so much trauma there, and we kind of say, well, that's their job, it doesn't bother them. But I've known people who were, in the military, and 40 years later they're having night terrors about their experience. And I'm wondering how you address that. And again, we say, well, they're professionals, but still, a trauma is a trauma, and they're human beings. And Clara, why don't you ask your question?
Well, Mike, let me just hopefully give you just a really quick response to that. That's why that's exactly why we're rolling out this this program on resiliency and compassion. And it really addresses that, the trauma that we're exposed to, how we should mitigate it. It's training that was just not offered before, right? To your point, we train people to be professional, be stoic, to handle whatever comes at them, but not necessarily to process what they just witnessed or what they just experienced. So that's what we've started focusing on this year, is to really roll out. Another position that I was grateful that the board gave us was a wellness coordinator. So we've hired the wellness coordinator for the organization, and her sole responsibility is to help develop our peer support programs, help outreach with all our employees, have a space for them to come, to get resources. Just like I talked with the PERT team, this is our internal team.
The thing I wanted to ask about, because I actually saw a presentation based on the National Association of Tactical Officers made a recommendation to use Brain HQ program to increase reaction precision. And they do tests before and after taking the training. And it seems to be carry over for a year or two in terms of reduced shootings for the officers that take the training. And I'm not selling anything. I just wanted to say, if you haven't heard about it, I put the link, a LinkedIn from the National Association of Tactical Officers page. So, if you want to, you can check it out. It's another way of, it does brain training for giving, if officers have more time to assess a situation unemotionally, which is what it's training, then it makes every decision a little bit better, a little bit less stress, and a little better outcome. And so I was just wanted to be sure that you had heard about it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I will definitely follow up on
that. Crystal?
Yeah, I just had a question. If you've noticed or seen any need for changes in, for example, use of force guidelines or any training associated with that.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that, there's always a need for improved use of force training. So let me just put that out there first. I think that's a conversation that should never just become complacent, how we handle things, de-escalate things. One of the things that the organization did, and actually occurred right before my arrival, they had totally revamped their use of force policies. And a lot of this had to do more so on the correctional side because of the incidents that had happened. But they'd finally gotten to a point where they revamped the whole use of force policy and actually gotten everybody through that training for that policy. And so that's great. One of the things we've enhanced over the past year is how we review all of our incidents. So we created a incident review for all use of force cases that come, especially in the correction side. That's where a vast majority of the force is, just because of the contact ratio. So anytime there's a major use of force, it not only gets documented internally by their supervisors, there's a whole package that has to get completed. It then goes up the chain of command and gets reviewed by the command staff. Again, that's where independent auditor, as well as the force monitors, now have access to see as well. So there's a constant dialogue, constant recommendations, and whether it's the monitors or the independent auditor, when they make recommendations, and this just happened with our use of clear out for cell extractions in the jails, we're very open to those recommendations, and we modify our policies and protocols to incorporate those recommendations, which is like we just did for those particular use of force.
Okay, Carrie?
Hi, my name is Carrie Levin, and first of all, thank you very much for presenting. I came in late, and I'm really impressed with your meditation background, that mindfulness practice. I think that's really awesome for an officer to have that. On a totally different token, about 20% of the population has some form of disability. Of that, in general, 4% people have deaf or hearing loss, and a lot of that overlaps with the other disabled populations. How does the organization plan to handle cases where the person may be pulled aside in a traffic violation that cannot understand what the officer is saying due to some disability, hearing loss? There's been instances across the country, thank God it hasn't happened here that I know of, where, you know, elderly people, just because they can't hear, are roughly handled to the point where the shoulders are actually yanked out or they get quite injured, for officers who are not understanding and think the person is just like ignoring. What training or plan for that do you have to handle those people who are either second language, hearing disability, other disabilities?
Yeah, well, for our enforcement side, you know, they only have a certain amount of resources accessible to them. If it's something, you know, that they're aware of based on the immediate interaction, and they can get a resource deployed to them or access to something, they're trained to do that. Where I think our greatest area of improvement has been is in our jails, because very often, to your point, sometimes individuals get involved in something, they get arrested, they still have those same disabilities, they come into the jails. And that's really what led to one of the lawsuits in the jail, was somebody who didn't have access to certain things to enhance their disability. So we created a whole ADA compliant unit. And that's something that just wasn't present before. So now, anytime somebody comes into the facility, they go through a two-phase screening process. Any disabilities they have gets referred to the ADA unit, which now works with that person, just almost similar to, like I said, with the rehabilitation officer. They work with that individual to make sure they have whatever device, whatever they need, so that they can stay in while they're incarcerated, and hopefully they can get them out sooner or later. But while they're there, they have access to all the tools they need to be able to communicate effectively. So hopefully that answers your question. This is an area that we're going to continually be working to improve on for both inside our jails and out in the community.
Yeah, the one out in the community concerns me more than inside.
Right. Yeah, and again, it just comes to having access to resources. You know, I think, again, to my earlier comment, this is where technology is going to be able to help us a little bit down the road, but we're going to have to wait to see. We don't have anything like that right now.
Thank you.
Crystal?
Yeah, so all over the Bay Area, we've seen increase in unhoused populations. And just wondering, what is the Sheriff's Department role, if any, in terms of preventing homelessness in the county?
Yeah, so a great question. Actually, we just had this conversation. What's today? Saturday? My life anymore. Thursday, we had this conversation in a very unique way, because homelessness in this county and actually throughout our state is something that I think everybody's addressing. So how can we help? We obviously are involved in some of the initiatives out in the field, but really one of the things that we're finding is that a lot of times when people get released from incarceration, they're getting released into homelessness and they don't have a place to go, right? So one of the things we're talking about, and this just started, like I said, this week, is that I'm going to be open to doing is putting some kind of transitional housing available for those individuals. So if they're getting released from incarceration and they're telling us they have nowhere to go. I want to try to find a transitional housing opportunity right there at the facility. So they'll no longer be in custody, but at least they won't have to just be released onto the street. So I'm actually really excited about that initiative. I think some of our county partners are excited about it as well. So at least that can slow the tide of people that are getting incarcerated, getting released, just getting right back out into the, because every time they get released, we do have access to services, but sometimes there's no beds available. Sometimes there's just no resources available at that particular moment. So I think it's really, really important that we find housing for those that are incarcerated upon release. So that is something new that we are working on. So I am more than happy to keep you updated as progress continues.
So I have a question about the San Jose, well, maybe it's been a couple of years now, but they passed an ordinance requiring insurance for gun owners, and one of the justifications for that had to do with giving law enforcement another tool, in the sense that the law requires you to have insurance and to have just a paperwork, a sheet of paper that says that you have that insurance under perjury. And the idea is that if a police officer stops someone, it's technically legal now to have a gun, let's say, on the seat next to you or whatever. But now they can say, well, can we see your insurance certificate? I'm wondering, are there any thoughts to rolling that out countywide?
Yeah, I haven't been involved in any of those conversations at the county level. I'm not saying it won't be something I will have a conversation about down the road. Maybe it comes up. You know, one of the things that's important to understand is just for clarification for the group, just because they have insurance doesn't give them the authority to carry a gun out in public. So there is a nuance there. Even if an officer pulls somebody over, they still, if they're going to, especially if it's a concealed firearm, they have to have that concealed firearm permit.
And on the college collaborative, which sounds like a great program, I assume that that's remote learning for people in the
No, so that's what's exciting about it. That's why we're primarily offering it at Elmwood, because yes, during the pandemic, that's how it actually started, is we had to get rid of everything. So they wanted to continue to have some kind of programming. So they built out initially online classes, but now we're building out to where they're coming in, the teachers are coming into the facilities teaching it. And that's why it's primarily at Elmwood, because we have the facilities to do that. We don't necessarily have that at main jail, but that's something we're working on.
Great. And this psychological test sounds very interesting. Is this a written test? Seems like we could apply this to a lot of different situations.
Yeah, no, it's actually, I think it's a combination. It's actually set up with an interview, which does, I'm sure, just like most psychological exams, starts with the written part of it, but then they actually have to meet with the psychologist. And this is the same psychologist that we have doing psychological evaluations for our hires within the organization.
Maybe we could apply this to the U.S. Congress.
I'm going to stay out of that one. Anything else?
I don't see any other questions here. I think we've exhausted our questions for the moment.
All right. Well, Mike, I think I don't know if I sent it to Gail, but I think you have a PDF of the PowerPoint, so you can disseminate it as you feel appropriate.
Right.
Great. Thank you, Sheriff Jonsen, and thanks for speaking and answering our questions. And we're glad to see that your new gig is treating you a little bit more gently than your acting career.
Yeah, so am I. Nobody's thrown me up against a wall or tree yet. So keep our fingers crossed. Progress continues to be made. And I just want to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving.
Continue the great work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. It's Julia. Thank you.
Nice to hear from you, Julia. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
stop by.
Well, let's move to announcements and updates from club members. I'm aware of a few, and for others, please raise your digital hand to speak or post announcements in the chat. I think Peggy was going to give an update on the Fremont Union High School District.
Yeah,
process.
so the CTAD committee, Community Trustee Area Districting Committee, that was decided, the 16 members were decided and announced yesterday by email. They also released some public mapping tools, and they have 3 workshops coming up. So there is one at the high school district office, one up at Columbia Middle School, and one at Quinlan Community Center in Cupertino. So I will drop the information to in the chat to RSVP for that. They really want RSVPs because they're providing food, so it's dinner at both the FUHSD as well as the Quinlan meetings, but the one at Columbia Middle School is in the morning, so that'll be more like a breakfast fare. So I really encourage you to attend that if possible, and also to know or get to know, be in contact with some of the CTAD committee. You'll have direct representation there, and of course through Dems Club we can make sure that your voices are heard if you're not sure how to do that otherwise.
For the uninitiated, you want to repeat what the CTAG committee is? Oh, yes. Let me see if I can get the acronym again. It's the Community Trustee Area Districting Committee, and that is for the transition from at-large to trustee area elections. They have presented some preliminary maps. This was just provided by the hired, what are they called, consultants, but we, as we did with Sunnyvale, would like the public to have the opportunity to contribute robustly to the map drawing process and to review process. And so they created through instead of having the trustees kind of have that the control of the map review and the process, they had the superintendent create the CTAD committee to make sure that there's good involvement from all over the district. So they did very directed recruiting, as well as very specific recruiting of the nominating committee. And so they have formed this committee. It was a very short time frame, and it looks to me, just based on like the 6 people that I know, that there will be good representation up in Northern Sunnyvale, where we've had a lot of concern about lack of representation. But you know what I am seeing is that the representation isn't necessarily direct. So I don't actually see anyone from 94089, 94085, Valerie, to respond to your question that I saw in the C Google group. But I do know that those people are in contact, for example, through the Sunnyvale Community Services, through the C group, and are very well attuned to and compassionate towards the situation in North Sunnyvale. And for that reason, I feel that it feels good just based on the people that I have seen. And every member of the public is also welcome to attend all of their meetings. They're on Monday nights. I think they are Zoom, accessible by Zoom as well. So please stay in tune to everything that's happening, and also want to just put a general call out to be aware of what's happening in school board races in the upcoming 24 elections, because we have seen some conservative MAGA kind of candidates throughout the country, but specifically here in Silicon Valley, there are several groups that are recruiting people to run on that that platform of, the parental rights, and to ban books, and to call the schools out for harming the children, and trying to indoctrinate everyone into becoming transsexual. There is very rigorous organization around there from that party. So
be aware of that, pay attention to the candidates. There are, like last time in 22, there were candidates that came through that their language wasn't necessarily screaming, you know, right-wing MAGA, and they also paid to not disclose, like they paid the fine so that they wouldn't have to disclose the funding for their campaigns, which would have revealed the connection, right-wing connections. So, you know, we see this throughout all elections, and there seems to be a very specific concerted effort at the school board level to, you know, come in and impact and honestly harm our democracy. So yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Crystal, I think, has an update on the Sunnyvale climate action game plan.
Yes, so the draft game plan for 2028, which is the city's next moves for the next 5 years in terms of climate action. The draft is out for public review, and there are workshops coming up, and there's a survey. I just wanted to invite everyone to engage with those. So the next workshop is December 2nd from 10 a.m. to noon, and it's at the community center, in person only. And then there's also an online only, which will be December 7th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And again, there is a survey as well. You can download the draft, review it at sunnyvaleclimateaction.org. So please participate. We need as many voices as possible to influence the next actions of the city.
Thank you.
If I could chime in, I would just say it is the city does take the feedback from residents on the climate action plan very seriously. And the previous iterations of the climate action plans were substantially and heavily influenced by that input. So it is really important that people speak up and put forward your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail, I think you've got an update on the holiday party and possibly also a legislative update on mobile home park stuff. Not sure if the latter is true.
Sure, the holiday party, December, hold on, I don't have a calendar in front of me.
16th.
Yeah, 16th. And it's at Fault Line, which is where we had it last year. And this time we have a little bit of a budget, so we're gonna get some appetizers, and 3 of us met over there for lunch, believe it or not, on Monday. And they brought out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We tasted 9 different appetizers. I just shot that to the little committee, and we'll figure out which ones to order. They're really nice there, and it's a nice room, and we're all welcome to come, and we'll figure out what else we're gonna do. But come one, come all. It's 2 to 5 on the whatever date I said that I didn't say. I don't want to say the wrong date. Okay,
December
and then
16th.
I did want to give you guys an update on mobile homes because I live in one, and you know, I keep preaching that mobile homes are different from regular houses because we're regulated very differently than regular houses. And the state law is that we're regulated by HCD. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 laws that were passed this year. One is this AB 318 by Addis, and that extends the Mobile Home Residency Act Protection Act, where there's actually a way to complain to HCD if your mobile home is not conducting itself in an appropriate manner, and that's extended for 3 years. And the second one was by our own Alex Lee from San Jose, and that's on water utility charges. Believe it or not, what some parks do, not the ones in Sunnyvale, what they do is they buy municipal water and then they mark it up to the residents, like a lot, not little, a lot. And there's actually a state law that you can't do that, but it's not strong enough. So Alex Lee came up with a law that actually should stop that. The next thing is a mobile park act on a conflict of interest with inspectors. And the last one is on security deposits. And this also affects rental properties. The bill would prohibit landlords from charging tenants more than 1 month's rent for security deposit. And that's that. If you want to know anything else about these, just let me know and I'll give you more information. But if you go to the state site, you can look up these particular laws or any other law that you see fit that you want to look at. Thanks.
Thanks, Gail. Mike, I think you had an update about the book club, and then also if you wanted to talk about the speaker event that the club co-sponsored this week.
Right. Well, yeah, I definitely want to encourage people who may have an interest to join the club book group. We've gone through, and there's some information posted on the website about that, but we read interesting books every month. This month, we had an author event last week, earlier this week, just this Thursday. The book is Who Killed Kenzo, and it's actually a local author, lives up in Berkeley, and it starts with the terrible tragedy that happened to him when his young son was shot and killed by visiting a friend's house by a friend who didn't think the gun was loaded. And so it starts there, but then it goes through the process of trying to sue the gun manufacturer for the lack of safety on the gun. And this is not to say, not the assumption that a gun by itself is unsafe, which you can certainly make that argument, but just in terms of indicating whether there was a bullet in the chamber or not. There's, not a requirement for there to be a clear indicator, or at least wasn't then an indication of that. There's also things they can do if the cartridge is removed. People would normally think if the cartridge is removed, the gun is not loaded, but that's not true. There may be a bullet in the chamber, which is what happened with this particular tragedy, and you don't know that. So they can put which they do sometimes, they put a mechanism that if the cartridge is removed, the gun won't fire. So I recommend the book, and it's a kind of a different approach from what we normally talk about, and of course the Congress in their wisdom, has blocked gun manufacturers from being sued on the basis of consumer protection. So they can kind of do whatever they want, which seems insane on many levels, but that's the way the law has been written. For a long time, the CDC was prohibited from doing any research on the dangers of gun ownership. So I recommend the book, and we had an excellent event with the author this week. On another subject, I think it's worth mentioning that the long-awaited housing element goes in front of the Planning Commission on the 27th, a week from Monday, and soon after to the City Council. So it's been a long time coming, so we're getting close.
Mike, there was a question in the chat from Colleen. Was the book talk that you were describing recorded?
No, it was not. It was held in a church in Saratoga, and there was no way to record. They didn't have any way to record it.
Okay. Thanks. I'm looking around to see if there are any other announcements. I'm not seeing any, but I did notice that we had at least 2 more elected officials join us. Richard, current council member, and Julia, former mayor and current I forget the right title, trustee of the El Camino Health District. I think I have a hand from Sue.
Yeah, it occurred to me that you might be interested to know, because it just came out that the city is starting its outreach for the new library. So, you know, if you're interested in that subject, you should go to the, website and their website, city's website, and check on getting updates about the library. There's a survey, they'll have in-person meetings. My feeling is it's going to be very impactful because when they started this how many years ago? 4 years ago? I don't know. They were really open to a lot of different kinds of ideas. There were a lot of people who even said that they didn't think libraries were really necessary. Nobody used them anymore. So there's a wide variety of opinions and ideas out there, some of which I think you wouldn't want, just speculating, knowing you folks mostly. So you might want to follow what's going on. It could go from nothing to a small remodel to a new 2-story building to new buildings. I mean, I think it's a pretty exciting time. And if you've been in the new city council building, you know it's possible, and we can do it, environmentally as best we can with LEED Platinum, at least. So anyway, just thought I'd share that.
And I should add that the library has a new head who just incidentally is part of this year's Leadership Sunnyvale class, and is terrific and is very interested in getting input from the community about what we want for the library.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, go talk to him.
Are there any more announcements? I'm not seeing any.
I was just,
Okay.
Mike, could you say what the book club is and how often we meet and stuff?
Well, we meet, it kind of depends on the length of a book. We meet maybe every, 6 weeks, and have been doing it for some time. Gail is part of it, and Carol ZB, if she's still there. And, Carol Weiss is our leader. And so, we read a book and then we get together and discuss it. I think one coming up, which I happen to be aware of because I'm hosting the discussion, is The Loop from Jacob Ward. It's a book on technology and artificial intelligence. So we'll be discussing that, I think, in January. So, and you can take a look on the website and send Carol an email if you want to be added to the list of being notified when we have a new book and we have a new meeting time.
And you don't have to read the book to be in the conversation.
Julia?
Yeah.
Do you take suggestions for books?
Sure.
Okay, I'll send you something.
If there are no more announcements, I want to thank you all for your participation today. You probably don't need a reminder, but participation in the political process is really, really important and getting more important by the day. So thank you for joining us today. Please have a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope to see you all at the holiday party next month, which, if I have it correct, is December 16th from 2 to 5. And with that, we wish you a very happy Thanksgiving.